Collapse Astrology. Welcome back if you are a returning viewer. My name is Hummingbird, and this video is the second of two on eclipse season. The first video just goes over the basics of the astrology for both eclipses, so you could skip that if you're coming to this video first and you're already familiar with the basics of Virgo and Pisces and Aries. Today, we're going to get into some deeper theory, I guess you could call it, around what is happening during an eclipse season on the level of karma and past lives and soul reincarnation. I've been talking about these subjects for several years, and there's an Instagram post that I usually share each eclipse season about how to jump timelines. And that gives a good summary of my basic framework for understanding this stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and go through that to start. So you can think of this post and just this whole video as a guide to jumping timelines during eclipse season. So what is karma? Most of us are souls that have reincarnated on Earth thousands of times. Karma is the culmination of each soul's experiences, choices, and repeated energetic dynamics. The South Node in the natal chart is a window into this nonlinear realm. Unless our spiritual sensitivity is shut down, we all resonate with something about the concept of karma beyond any spiritual or religious framework or semantics. We all feel it because we all have it. Karma is not inherently good or bad in the same way that our current lives contain massive amounts of nuance. It's an energetic patterning we carry, which can be edited in various ways as our lives unfold. However, it's true that some karma feels supportive, for example, having natural musical talent or an intuitive connection to plants, while other karma, the stuff that you are here to heal in this lifetime, can feel like a massive block to where you're trying to get in your life. Our karma tends to keep us locked on certain life paths. Sometimes it's a manifestation we have to repeat, like ending up in the same relationship dynamic again and again. Sometimes it's a destiny-shaping event we never saw coming, but that feels strangely familiar as it unfolds. Astrology gives us a sense of chronological timelines that can't be rushed. And beyond that, our non-linear timelines are carved out by the frequency we're vibrating at. In my opinion, there is a difference between fate and destiny. Fate refers to the timelines and dynamics we can't escape, which are mapped out in our astrology. Destiny comes from the choices we make along these fated paths, the way that we navigate them with our own agency. So fate is karma, the energy that's already with you, while destiny is the way that you work with it this time around. In the natal chart, the South Node describes karma, and the North Node describes the direction we need to move in if we want to evolve out of the karma. Eclipses happen when the nodes interact with the Sun and Moon, the two planets most central to our identity, bringing them into a karmic line of fire. This is why we find ourselves in situations that feel fated during eclipse season, and why our choices during these times can have big impacts down the road. That would be destiny. So that's the super quick summary of my take on these things. I also published a longer piece on Medium, which expands on all of these different concepts, and I'm going to share a few excerpts from that as well. So first, let's talk a little more about the nodes and what is happening energetically during an eclipse season. A solar eclipse occurs when the moon moves directly between the Earth and the Sun, and a lunar eclipse occurs when the moon is on the opposite side of the Earth, in the shadow cast by the Sun. Eclipses occur in sets of 2 or 3, approximately every 6 months. The nodes of the moon are mathematically calculated points that help to predict eclipses. They're located at the two opposite points when the moon's orbit intersects with the ecliptic, which is the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun. Astrologically, the nodes describe the arc of soul evolution, with the South Node representing karma, the culmination of our past life experiences, and the North Node offering information about the soul's growth edge, the themes and energies we need to embrace in order to heal from our karmic wounds. Although use of the nodes traces back centuries in both Western and Vedic astrology for tracking eclipses, they haven't been associated with past lives and karma until recently. This might really surprise some of you guys, but as Chris Brennan covers in episode 290 of the Astrology podcast, the earliest references to this connection in Western astrology come from Dane Rudyard, who wrote about them in 1936. And even more surprising, despite the fact that karma is an inextricable element of the Vedic worldview, no texts in its 2,000 plus years of history linked the nodes specifically with the current concepts until the 1970s. I know that that's wild. Some of you guys might not believe me if you haven't heard that specifically, but go check out that in-depth episode of the Astrology podcast if you want to learn more. The Western tradition of evolutionary astrology, led by Stephen Forrest and Jeffrey Wolf Green, has fleshed out nodal concepts much more thoroughly in the past few decades. So this year, the nodes have just entered Virgo and Pisces, and we're in one of those transitional seasons where one of the eclipses is on the previous axis. So we've got the first eclipse at 23 Virgo and the second one at 9 Aries. So that second one represents a closing out of the node's journey through Aries and Libra, which lasted from mid-2023 till just this past January when they changed signs. And of course, that second eclipse is also happening at this really intense moment that I got into in the first video, where Mercury, Venus, and Neptune are all crossing that Pisces-Aries threshold. Venus and Mercury are retrograde, etc., etc. Check out video number 1 if you want to learn more about that. A little bit more about timelines here. So I'm using the word timeline to broadly describe the path each soul is following on its personal attempt at the journey back to source. It's not a perfect word because the journey is multidimensional, stretching beyond time. However, chronological time is an essential foundation, I think, of understanding karmic timelines. There are some lessons that just can't be rushed, some karmic wounds that can't heal or even really open until we reach a certain threshold of life experience. And astrological transits offer a really clear map of this. Within the more rigid dimension of time, we have a lot of choice as to our frequency, and these choices align us with different people, circumstances, and resources. Ultimately, our choices create the lives that we manifest, i.e., the timelines that we're on. Because eclipses activate the lunar nodes, which serve as anchor points for the soul's karmic arc, they are unique opportunities to leap, trapeze artist style, from one timeline to another. Just like on the real trapeze, faith is required. You may have to let go of something before your fingertips have touched what's next. But if you show up to eclipse season determined to make soul-directed choices and to carry through with them, you might literally change your destiny. Now, this gets us into some crunchy stuff because some of you are probably thinking, rightfully, that this is a slippery slope to all kinds of spiritual bypassing. So here's my take on some of that. Of course, this framework does not negate the fact of systemic injustice. And I'm not trying to say that a person marginalized by oppressive systems can just make different choices or jump to a new timeline to suddenly achieve a Western version of success. What this is about is picking your battles on the personal level, looking for situations where karmic patterns are holding you back from being your best self. Your relationship to oppressive systems, of course, is part of your karma. Spiritual growth without proactive resistance to them is impossible because these systems like white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, they inhabit our bodies, they live inside of us, and they have to be actively removed like weeds. Otherwise, individual power just stays dim and small and suppressed, no matter how much a person meditates or how many ayahuasca ceremonies they attend. Also, some folks feel a pushback against the idea that being born into oppressive circumstances is fate or karma because they take it as an indication of punishment, as in you did something bad in a past life and now you're paying for it. That's essentially saying you deserve the injustice you've suffered. But to me, this shows how deeply a binary, punitive ideology has already permeated our spirituality. Although it's true that harm we've caused in past lives can play out as some of our challenges in this life, the soul also chooses the body and life in which it can most effectively evolve and contribute. In my view, many of the strongest, most profound, and brightest souls inhabit bodies which suffer disproportionately under the colonial project. Maybe they're on these front lines because they are our soul leaders, the bright lights that we need to follow on the journey towards healing, with payment for their services, of course. And finally, to be clear, in my opinion, soul evolution has absolutely no mirror in Western success. The psychopathic late-stage capitalism we're living through has catapulted millions of the smallest, least developed souls into positions of power. As the wealth gap increases, more and more people have less and less resources to work with, and success, quote unquote, in the form of the American dream is growing less and less possible to achieve. But souls will continue to evolve, even through collapse times, not by chasing money or recognition, but through sacrifice, compassion, and the choice to face tough truths. If you are already leaning away from society's definition of success, I would say you're ahead of the game. And if you are leaning into that for the values that you're trying to create your life around, I would say be careful, because that ground may quickly dissolve beneath your feet. So I hope some of that lands for some of you. This is something that I have thought a lot about, how to understand both the karmic and systemic dimensions of this human experience. And again, in the piece on Medium, you can find even more of my ideas about that. I get into the history of the word karma and its association with the caste system and my own meaning and intention when I use it, and just more on what I believe about past lives and reincarnation, etc. So finally, let me finish here by sharing a few guidelines for timeline jumping during the time of the eclipse portal, which basically means between the two eclipses, although I usually start to feel the energy of eclipse season about a week before. So there are 8 total guidelines. They're also fully fleshed out on Medium, but this is just a distilled version that has all the main important points. So number 1, be extra alert for signs of karma. That can be deja vu, that can be just a general sense of familiarity with a situation or dynamic. That can also be very unexpected events or revelations that feel fated, and also just situations, relationships in your life that you know are karmic. Number 1 is just be alert for those signs. Number 2, bring your awareness to your body in those moments or when you're contemplating them later. And notice your energetic condition, notice how deep your breath is, notice if your chakras are blocked, notice if your body is warm or cold, tight or loose, and start to identify the somatic experience of that karma. Turn it into something that you're understanding, not just intellectually or emotionally, but in your body. And so number 3, during eclipse season, hold your chosen frequency as strongly as you dare, no matter how hard life tries to knock it out of you. And that, of course, is also going to be an embodied experience, something that you need to be working with yourself on a somatic level to do. And then number 4, long term, lean into choices and ways of being that register inside of you as something more comfortable than the heavy, constricted, or inflamed feeling of your karma. And of course, to work with this, it does require like ongoing somatic practice, because, you know, if you are not more acutely tuned in, disassociation can feel good, and facing hard realities can feel bad. And so you can sometimes get those things confused. But if you are a practitioner of some sort, which I highly recommend being, getting to know and track what's happening in your body and in your breath is just really, really key all the time for doing your karmic and energetic work, but especially during eclipse season. We will finish here. Thanks as always for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to this channel, and maybe even share the video with a friend if you found it helpful. I'll be back in the next week or two with a very deep dive on Neptune's entrance into Aries. Bye for now.